You're having yourselves a tremendous morning this morning and enjoying life out there wherever you may be. If you're here with us in central and upstate New York, or if you're on the East Coast, the West Coast, the Midwest, or all around the world, I want to thank you for listening in and watching Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. I know we've had people in China, Russia, Spain, Brazil, Canada, Mexico, and all over the United States of America. So thank you so much for tuning into the show and being a part of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. So we're inside the Cafe Kubal studios, Cafe Kubal, with locations all throughout central and upstate New York for you. Make sure you make your way over there to 401 South Salina Street, 208 North Townsend Street, where the Kubal Co-Works is as well. And you can find them on 3501 James Street and 324 West Water Street in Syracuse. You can also find them in downtown Syracuse inside of Golisano's Children's Hospital, and out in Manlius, where all the roads converge together to welcome you into Manlius on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, in the giant brown striped building. And, of course, their newest location, which is their first ever drive-through location, which is fantastic to grab my chai and go. And that is on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road, Sweetheart Corners. Very excited to have them there in North Syracuse for Cafe Kubal. So however you connect to them, make sure you do that today. Let them know the Wake Up Call sent you, and much appreciation. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. You are listening on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt worldwide. You're listening on wakeupcalldt.com. And, of course, you're watching us here. Hello. On Facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, Facebook.com/LiveNowDT, and on YouTube.com/wakeupcalldt. Plenty of show coming up for you today, and plenty of topics from two gentlemen I'm very excited to have on the show. One is here with us pretty darn near every single Thursday, and the other one is a new voice to the show, so I'm very excited. Papa Joe joining us in hour number one, and of course with his extended family all out there in Wisconsin. Shout out to Mary T and the gang. They have a championship to celebrate with them Milwaukee Bucks, and they have something to think about in Wisconsin with Aaron Rodgers finally breaking his silence and owning that. I don't even know if he got permission. I mean, who knows what was or what wasn't, but when he stepped in front of that podium, he said a lot of things, and we're going to go through some of those things he said and what it means for the Green Bay Packers and Aaron Rodgers and what seems to be a very public potential divorce. So we'll be talking about that, and of course we'll get into Major League Baseball and college football realignment. The SEC looks like they're just building a smaller version of the NFL, and we'll discuss that in just a little bit, as Texas and Oklahoma are looking to jump from the Big 12, and what does that mean for everybody else? We've been talking about it all week. We'll continue to. And in hour number two, around 10:15 a.m. Eastern Time, I'll welcome for the first time ever Karl Haywood to the show. Karl Haywood and I spent time together at the ACC Kickoff, and he'll be joining us from CSRA Press Sports in East Central Georgia, and he'll be talking with us on the 2021 ACC Kickoff, the current college football climate, covering Georgia Tech for as long as he has, and his history overall in sports, as Karl is kind of an encyclopedia. And to connect to Papa Joe, guess what Karl's connected to? Augusta. And he's connected to the world of golf. So got a lot of good stuff coming up with PJ and Karl that connect back to one another today. Kind of cool how that seamlessly transitions between the two. So a lot of good stuff coming up. So let's bring in the man of the hour. You know him as Papa Joe. You know him as PJ. You know him as the go-so grand old smooth one. And I know him as another father figure, one of the greatest people I've ever met in my life. The OG of the OGs, PJ, locking it down in northern Florida. Let's bring the man in. Papa Joe, how we doing?
Oh, thank you for all those accolades, Damon. Thank you. I'm glad you got a bud at the second hour that has a little something in common with me. But I'm not quite so sure my bros in Milwaukee are happy, so I'm still trying to gauge their interest. They're pissed, I know that, but it's a very difficult situation up there. There's enough happening in the world and the country it needs more of our attention than trying to listen to Aaron Rodgers. I can't figure this out. I mean, I'm opinionated on it because I think I've always felt he's a little bit of a diva. But, frankly, he's earned it over the years. I mean, he paid his dues behind Brett Favre, and now he's the man. I mean, he's definitely the man. I mean, if he just stared down the big bad wolves of Green Bay and actually asserted himself into the, shall we say, minority ownership of Green Bay. I don't think they're going to have any other decision to be made unless they talk with Mr. Rodgers first. You know, notwithstanding the fact that he's a hell of a player. I mean, he's a great football player. I mean, he's multi-MVP. So, you know, I don't know where we go from that, but Green Bay's better watch what they're talking about because, frankly, he can still play football. And if he wants to play it somewhere else, so be it. I know they're not going to trade him because they can't get the value for him. So, I almost felt a couple of months ago, I almost felt that he was going to walk out. You know, he's got a ton of money, doesn't need the money. That's just the way he is. I mean, but he hasn't lost interest in playing. That I know. And our boys up there are snooping around, and they're not getting anything that the media doesn't know already. So I don't have any scoop for you, but I'm a little perturbed with him, but I'm also happy for him. So if they want to bring him into the meld and help him make decisions, that's fine. If they want to leave him alone and let him play football, I guess that's fine too. But at the end of this football season, we may see the last of Aaron Rodgers.
Well, you know, he said a lot of things. We're going to address a bunch of them, but he did talk about the fact that he was considering walking away. What are your thoughts today? He's 38 years old. I believe he has 3 more years on his contract. The thought that Aaron Rodgers would have simply just walked away from football because he didn't know if he wanted to play anymore.
Well, that's true. I mean, he puts himself through a regimen of exercises. He does that over in California where he's from. And he just finished his 6 weeks. Finished up. He said he's in great shape. He looks good. And he doesn't have his honey anymore. He's got a new honey. And he's going to get married to the new honey, so maybe that'll help him.
I got a little issue with him, though. The new honey that he has is kind of a crush of mine, Shailene Woodley, and she's closer to my age, I think, than him, so I think he needs to back off, is my thought.
Well, he came close. I think he came close to walking away. But I think he's too competitive. I think he's got a good team. You know what pissed him off the most, Daniel, was that over the years, the hierarchy of Green Bay used to make these personnel decisions, frankly, without even consulting him. I mean, when you got a Hall of Fame quarterback, you'd say, hey, do you think we ought to let Jordy Nelson go, or do you think we got another couple of years out of him? You know, something like that. And I think he was really, really pissed because Jordy Nelson left. That I know. So along those lines, the decisions that Green Bay made just rankled him. So what does he do? He just clams up, says, I'm not playing anymore. I may go to camp. I may not go to camp. And you guys stew for a while. Talk to my agent. So, you know, that's where we're at. But I think he'll play this year for sure. I just don't think he's not going to. He won't play for the Packers next year. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah, you know, and that's the thing. I mean, I watched his address yesterday, and he said a lot of different stuff. Here with Papa Joe inside the Cafe Kubal studios on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, speaking on the Aaron Rodgers saga. He said, you know, I want to be involved in conversations that affect my ability to do my job. You know, and speaking about the fact of, you know, just things he wants to be involved. He said, quote, I wanted to help the organization maybe learn from some of the mistakes in the past and about the way that some of the outgoing veterans were treated, and just the fact that we didn't retain a number of players that I felt like were core players to our foundation, to our locker room, high character guys, end quote. He mentioned a ton of guys. He had a long list. Charles Woodson to Randall Cobb, who they let go in 2019. You know, he really took the time, and I'm sure, you know, I don't want to say I'm sure because I don't know Aaron personally, but I would imagine that maybe he even talked to some of these guys saying, hey, I'm going to mention you. But he mentioned a long list of players. You know, he didn't just say, hey, I think we made some bad decisions. He mentioned a long list of former Green Bay Packer players that he felt like were mistreated. And I thought that was, you know, I think that showed that he was kind of the ultimate teammate, too, to call that out and say, hey, you know, they deserve to be treated better. So, you know, I think I like the fact that Aaron said, hey, some of these guys are mistreated. Here's, you know, here are the guys I'm talking about. I thought that was kind of interesting. And if I was one of those guys, I feel like I'd find some type of peace or appreciation in hearing Aaron say that he actually cared enough to mention my name.
Sure, it's good. It's true. I mean, Randall Cobb is coming back. I know he's going to be signed as a free agent, so that's going to be Aaron's little security blanket while his tall beast receivers on the outside can get loose. This is a very, very difficult situation. It's tenuous.
Yeah.
It's tight. You know, there's not a lot of wiggle room here. You know, for Aaron to say, well, you know, I didn't mean all that stuff. No, he meant it all, and he wants to. If I were them, I would say, listen, Aaron, here's 5% of the club. It's probably worth about $50 million. 5% of the club. You do what you want to do while you're here. Play for us, and if you retire here, you get 5% of the club. You help us make decisions. What's the matter with that?
Well, yeah, I mean, and I think really what it comes down to right now is, you know, I mean, the question was, what was he thinking? You know, and what was going through his head, and why wasn't he playing, and what were the issues? And I think that you know, really what it comes down to is what I love is most of the time we don't know. You know, it's not clear. People are prognosticating all over the place, but we're not getting a clear, definitive answer. When he comes out and says, hey, this didn't happen, this wasn't just during the draft, this happened well before the draft, this happened in February, here are my thoughts, this is why I'm upset, this is what I'm thinking. You know, very rarely do we get that much information to find out, like, why somebody's upset, what they're upset about, because a lot of people are just trying to guess. And so, if for nothing else, I love that Aaron Rodgers came out and said, hey, for everybody wondering, yes, it's tumultuous. Yes, it's been tough. No, we don't agree on everything. And these are my problems with the Green Bay Packers. I mean, he aired them out publicly, so now they're clear. And you know, I think it was like you said, and we were talking about, it was a power move, because now people know if things break down, he's already said, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want. These are the problems that I have in this relationship. So, you know, now he's put it out on blast, and, you know, he's smart to do it, because if the Packers want to keep him, or they want to keep him happy for this year, for next year, for whatever, I think, you know, now that he's done this publicly, which is a difficult thing to do, and you can go back and forth, and whether it's, you know, it's right to air your dirty laundry publicly, but now that he's done it, he's put the onus on the Packers. He's put it on them now at this point that they're going to have to really come through for him, because if they don't, well, then people are going to know, you know, based on what he talked about and what he said and what he addressed. I mean, if they don't figure things out, well, he's already said what his issues are. He's already said what his problems are. So I think, you know, putting out there publicly, people can now address these and talk about these things. And if I'm in the front office of the Green Bay Packers, I want to make this thing go away, and I don't want this to follow me all throughout the year. So I would probably try to address these issues and do as well as I can to get this done, because you know they're going to be asked about this all year long now.
Of course. Well, let them figure it out. I got my eyes and ears up there in Milwaukee, so if I hear anything, if I hear anything nasty, I'll let you know.
Yeah, you know, and we look at, you know, kind of just everything that he mentioned here, and that he seriously considered retirement, and was trying to figure out, you know, what he was going to do, and what was going to happen. And so, you know, that was another thing to look at, is that he really did look at retirement. He looked at leaving the game, and you know, PJ, I got to ask you, I mean, this is a guy who said that, you know, he's like, I feel like I proved myself. You know, he said something that really hit me. And I could remember my bosses exactly when he brought us up this example. I could remember my exact bosses that I thought of in this situation. And he said, you know, think about going to a job, right? And you do a great job, and you have a great year. He was like, think about like the media, and he you know, was talking to the people in the room, and, you know, potentially us beyond. And he said, you know, you write some great stories, you do some great work, and, you know, you're having like a great year, and you go to your boss and you ask for a raise, and they go, let's see where it goes. And then they come back to you and say, yeah, you know, you did great. You did great things for us. You got us a bunch of, I mean, obviously I'm paraphrasing, but, you know, you got us a bunch of exposure. You did a lot of great things, but we're not going to give you a raise, but thanks anyway. And, and then he says, and then you go to them and say, well, I found another job with someone that appreciates me. And they go, no, 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 we don't want you to leave. And so, he really brought it up like that. He said, basically, this is what the Packers are doing to me. I had a fantastic year. They don't want to do more for me. They don't want to give me what I want. And how would you feel if, you in the media did a great job, or you in any of your jobs did a great job and you deserved a raise and they didn't give you a raise? And I remember I started my company right after my bosses had lied to my face, laughed in my face, and didn't give me what they promised me after I held up my end of the bargain. And they told me, we're happy where you are. So I knew exactly what Aaron Rodgers was talking about because I started my own company more than 9 years ago after dealing with a bunch of jokes. So, if that's what he's dealing with in Green Bay, my best advice to him is get the hell out of there.
Yeah. He backed him down, though. It's in Green Bay sports.
He definitely backed him down. And you know what? A man who last season at 37 years old, Papa Joe, I'm going to read you these numbers. Don't fall off your chair. 70.7% completion percentage, his second highest in his career ever, dating back to 2007 when he was 71.4. 48 touchdowns, the most passing touchdowns he's ever had in any season at Green Bay. 5 interceptions, 4,299 yards. This was one of his best 4,000-yard seasons. He's had multiple, including 3 in a row in 4 of the last 5 years. 48 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, over 70% completion percentage. Aaron Rodgers arguably just had his best close to his best statistical year of his entire career at Green Bay. I would think at 37 years old, if you're throwing 48 touchdowns to 5 interceptions, some people don't do that in a career, and you got 70% completion percentage and just shy of 4,300 passing yards, I think he can definitely say that not only has he helped this franchise win a Super Bowl and helped this franchise do a lot of great things, but a 48 touchdown, 5 interception year at 37 years old, yeah, I think he probably should have a little bit of pull at this point.
That's true. I mean, he's a Super Bowl player, very heady, still got physical skills, throws the heck out of the ball, puts it in tight spaces. Look, the Packers appreciate what they have, the players. Okay, let the ownership and management worry about it if they want to do something about it. But I think right now, we've about heard the end of this stuff. I don't want to hear it anymore. I know that. I don't want to read it anymore either. So I want to see the football camp start, like with our Jags here, and everyone go through their trials and tribulations, and do the cuts and sign the guys and this and that and this, and go play ball. That's all I want to see.
He plays this year. He said he didn't want to be like a lame duck, right? So, right. But do you foresee him giving maximum effort and doing all he can, or do you think that this is one of those things where if his body maybe aches a little bit, he goes, you know what, I'm gonna sit out this game or sit out that game? I mean, can we expect? Would you anticipate Aaron Rodgers giving maximum effort, or is this more of, Aaron Rodgers kind of mailing it in? I mean, how do you assess a season where he wants to play and he wants to show himself, but I don't think he wants to win these guys a Super Bowl.
He's a winner, period, and he'll do everything he can to win. If those players got his back, especially the left tackle, who's got to protect him more than anyone. The players have his back, and if he can repeat the same thing he's doing, maybe get a Super Bowl, then maybe perhaps he can walk away. But he's not done yet. He's not done yet. He wants more Super Bowls. He wants more records. Frankly, the season last year was one of the best I can remember from any quarterback, Kevin, not just him. And he's extraordinary as it is. But, there's not a lot of quarterbacks that did what he did last year. It's 70% completion, 4,300 yards, and 9 million touchdowns. So, let the man play. And at the end of the year, if you still can't get together, I'll see him sayonara. Yeah,
and part of me on that, I can't state that, he wouldn't want to win a Super Bowl for them. I just think it's dicey, but a competitor's a competitor, and I anticipate Aaron Rodgers to go out there and do the best he can, and obviously his teammates have had his back. So I I would expect him to have theirs and hope that he does. So let me clarify on that. He's under contract for the next 3 seasons. He's under contract this year with the team. His base salary, $14.7 million, and then in just base, and then from here, he will go to $25 million base salary next year, $25 million after that. He's not an unrestricted free agent until 2024. So, that's where he's at right now, and that's where things are. He gets more money if he there's incentives built into his contract that he can find more money from here, but he's made a ton of money and he's had a ton of success. So, yeah, I don't know if this is about the money at all, but this is where he is, and this is what's happening. And you got to remember, at the beginning of his career, he had to sit there as Brett Favre twiddled his thumbs and tried to figure out what he wanted to do with his life. People forget they drafted Aaron Rodgers, and then they told him, you're the heir apparent, and you're going to get a chance, and you're going to get an opportunity. And he had to sit there for multiple years until Brett Favre figured out what he wanted to do with his life. So, with all due respect, this man went through a lot in the beginning of his career. Then you trade up or trade into the first round to draft his replacement in Jordan Love when he has he doesn't have any sign that he's going to stop playing. So, at the beginning of his career, you make him wait. Toward the tail end of his career, you're drafting his replacement prematurely. And in the middle of all this, you're not making decisions that he thinks are best for the team, and you're getting rid of some of his weapons like Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb. So, to Aaron Rodgers' side, I don't know how much you want to give to a player, because then all the players are going to say that they should have a seat at the table. But for what he's been through with Green Bay and having to wait, and then seeing your replacement just sitting there waiting for you to leave, and then having to lose weapons along the way, I think he does have a point that, it's if I would be frustrated if you drafted me and told me to wait 3 or 4 years, and then you drafted my replacement when I still had 3 years on my contract, and then you got rid of the guys that I really had great relationships with as wide receivers out there. I can imagine that I would have had a lot of issues with that as well.
That's true. That's true. But he's going to give it his all. He's not a quitter, so he's going to, even if they wind up 8-8 this year, he's still going to be Aaron Rodgers. He's still going to play well, and he's going to do everything he can for his team to win. So, let's leave it at that, and hope that the management and the ownership, one thing a lot of people don't know in the country is that Green Bay is a very small market area.
Yeah.
It's like Jacksonville. They're even a lot smaller than Jacksonville. They're not a Washington or St. Louis or Los Angeles type of market. They're tiny, and frankly, they got all of Wisconsin pulling for them. So I don't know where the money comes from, but they do a good job in paying their bills. So they may have to pay Aaron a little bit more. But $25 million to play quarterback at the NFL seems like a lot.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's only half of what Pat Mahomes makes in average salary. A guy who's looking at making $50 million a year.
Right.
So just to throw that out, you could live 10 lifetimes and still have money left
in
over.
average salary. A guy
Craziness. Some people will never see $1 million in their entire life cumulatively, and people get to see $50 million in 365 days. PJ, we got a nice question that came in from Greg, who's a longtime listener. Loves when you talk about famous Jameis. He said, he said, how are things going with the new scooter, PJ? Hopefully you're getting out and about.
Oh, my God. Thank you very much, Greg, for that. We just got it installed yesterday. Well, I can't install. We just got the carriage installed yesterday. And you should have seen MT and I are out around the driveway trying to figure this thing out. We know basically how it works because we had a small tutorial. But I have to get used to it, and I have to drive up on it, and then I have to get off, and then we got to attach this to this, and then we got to raise it's on hydraulics. You got to raise it all the way up. Then you got to strap it in. Then you got to put your cover on. So, it's wonderful. Frankly, it's going to change my life, and MT is ecstatic because now I can go with her any place I want. Now I have to go to the hospital, I have to go shopping at Publix, or I have to go at a car show, or I have to go see Joe. I can just roll that thing back up there, strap it on, and roll. And Mary zipped up and down our road there, a little road there, and it's pretty neat. It's big now. I mean, it extends a good 5 feet past the Santa Fe that we drive. And the Hyundai Santa Fe is a good truck for it. It has a good towing capacity of about 5,000 or 6,000 tons. But the unit itself was only 25 or 250 pounds, and then the cart on top it's another 250 pounds. So, we're happy, and I feel safe. So
yeah.
I feel safe that I can expand my life instead of just sitting here muling. I don't want to do that. I can't do that. I can't walk. I can't walk any distance. Can't stand on my feet for any distances. So the longest time. So I'm happy about it. Thank you for asking, Greg.
Yeah, that coming from Papa Joe, hanging out here with us. The man's on wheels, and he's making it happen. Papa Joe never gives up, and a consummate, always a consummate professional, but somebody who consistently, PJ, and I don't know if you know this, hopefully you know this, but you are one of the main reasons, one of the big reasons, and everyday reasons that no matter how bad I think something is, a situation or something bothering me in life, because of people like yourself never giving up, never giving in, and always finding a way and an angle to be positive. It's a reminder to me of what I need to do. So thank you for never giving up, because you teach us all how to do that.
Right. Mary, she's over here nodding her head.
Yeah, he never gives up. And shout out to Mary T. I know she's running out the door, but really quick, if she can yell in here for a second. Congratulations, Miss Wisconsin, for getting your Milwaukee Bucks championship.
No joke. Oh, we're happy. Yes. Congratulations. Thank you.
Yes.
Buck fever, they call it up there. Isn't that what they call it?
Yeah.
Get buck fever.
Yeah, they say fear the deer, which is totally different in Syracuse, but because they're always on the highway and whatnot. But we're going to take a quick...
Wisconsin, in my opinion, has some of the best sports fans and sports teams in collectively now. I mean, they got the Brewers are still hanging in there. The Brewers are leading their division by, 6 or 7 games. Their pitching is holding up. They're trailing the league, listen to this, in batting average. They're last in the league in batting average, and they're a top 7 games in their division. So as my bro up there, Brewski, says, go figure. Go figure.
Yeah, Milwaukee doing their thing, putting themselves on the map of the map. So we will take a step aside for a fast break here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. When we come back, PJ and I will take a look at Major League Baseball, and we'll do a little bit of a conversation on college football realignment as the SEC looks to get even more fantastical. Might as well start their own conference by themselves, or I should say their own NCAA by themselves, their own league of their own, seriously. So we'll talk about Major League Baseball. We'll hop into realignment, and Karl Haywood will be joining us in hour number 2 right after this fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life inside of the beautiful, the incredible, the awesome, and amazing place to get your coffee, tea, a snack, or a meal. Cafe Kubal. Support local today, and we'll be back right after this.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Kubal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafekubal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Kubal needs. Cafe Kubal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt. Hope you're having yourselves a fantastic morning this morning. We are on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and of course, we are inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. You're watching on facebook.com/livenowdt, facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, and on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. I implore you to go back to facebook.com/livenowdt today, and facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, and on YouTube as well. And check out those videos of the Liverpool Leadership Lounge, where I got to sit down with the Liverpool School District Superintendent, Dr. Mark Potter, the Deputy Superintendent, Dan Henner, and the Director of Athletics, Ari Lieberman, at Avicoli's. Definitely want to check those out. A fantastic leadership lounge. Answered a lot of questions about the pandemic, about school, about everything they've been through, about athletics, and even about the new girls basketball coach and kind of the process of going through that. So you don't want to miss a minute of any of that, and you definitely want to check it out. A fantastic conversation with leaders in our community here in Liverpool, and really want to thank them for taking the time, because you don't always get you don't get that kind of time with these leaders and to answer all these questions, and they were so gracious with their time and everything. So make sure you check those out and see what it's all about, the Liverpool Leadership Lounge. So with that being said, PJ and I have more to talk about today. The next topic on the docket is Major League Baseball, and PJ always gives us the rundown and lets us know what he's thinking and what's happening and what's going on. Just to give you all a little assessment here at the time that we're talking before PJ jumps in here and gives us his thoughts, just to take a look inside of where things are at and where we stand currently right now with Major League Baseball. At the time we're talking here at the end of July, we are looking at Major League Baseball coming out of the break and showing us that their current placement, Boston in the American, we'll start in the American League. In the American League East, Boston still in first place, 2.5 games above the Rays. The Yankees are making a push, though, 8.5 games behind the Blue Jays. We're at the top. They're now almost at the bottom, 10.5 games back. Baltimore still well out of everything at 26.5 games back. In the Central, the Chicago White Sox continue to stay above the Cleveland Indians, but there's more separation now. 8.5 games, Chicago in first and Cleveland behind. Then Detroit, Kansas City, and Minnesota. In the American League West, the Houston Astros stay in first place. The A's are 6 games back. The Mariners 8, and then the Angels and the Rangers. The Mets in the National League East, in the most contested division in baseball, still from top to bottom. The Mets are in first, 4 games ahead of the Phillies, 5 games ahead of the Braves, 8 games ahead of the Nationals, and 11 games ahead of the Miami Marlins. In the Central for the National League, the Milwaukee Brewers that PJ brought up from Mary T's home state, they are in first place, 7 games ahead of the Reds, 9 ahead of the Cardinals, and the Cubs are 10.5 back, and the Pirates 21.5. And the division that hosts the worst team in baseball, that also happens to be my favorite team, the San Francisco Giants, are in first place, 2 games ahead of the Dodgers, 5.5 ahead of the Padres, 19.5 ahead of the Colorado Rockies, and with a resounding, disgusting, ugly, I want to throw up, how is this possible, 32 games back. How about this? The amount of games that they're out of first place in the West is the amount of games that they've won. They're 32 games behind San Francisco, and they've won 32 games. That's an ugly, strange statistic that I just wanted to tell you this morning to twist the knife that's in my back a little bit farther. The Arizona Diamondbacks, 32-71, a 31% winning percentage. What a disgusting, disgusting year for my beautiful, beautiful Diamondbacks. And I hand it over to PJ to give his thoughts on baseball, now that I had to tell you that they're as many games back as they've won this year.
Well, there's a lot of action in the last couple of days until tomorrow, because that's when that trade deadline is over. There's some really, really, really big names out there that are eligible to be traded for. And, some of them are fiscally possible, some of them aren't. The one that happened last night with Joey Gallo from the Texas Rangers to the pitiful Yankees. Why the Yankees need another bat, I don't know. They got good players. They got two sluggers, Judge and Stanton, and they bring another slugger in. Don't get it. They need pitching. They're not going to – look, they're, 8, 9 games out. They're not going to catch the Red Sox. I don't know what they're dreaming. I'm a big Yankee fan, have been all my life, but to me they're being manipulated. Don't like it at all. Let's see, Trevor Story from Colorado to the Mets. I'm not sure that's happened yet, but that's something I'm reading about. Trevor Story, of course, was an all-star shortstop for Colorado and was in the home run derby along with Gallo. One that it's a sleeper for me right now, and I'm not sure this is going to happen, but there's been a lot of talk about Chris Bryant from the Cubs to anywhere. And this guy's a great ball player, all-star. I don't know what's happening in Chicago. They're falling apart. I thought they would be up there a little bit better. Trey Turner from Washington, his name has been out there, and he stopped it right there. He says, hey, I'm not going anywhere, and if I go anywhere, I'm only playing shortstop, so y'all figure it out. They got Starlin Marley from Miami, went to Oakland. Now, Marley's an all-star, heck of a ball player. You got Craig Kimbrell, hear a lot of talk about from the Cubs, is looking to go somewhere. And the biggest name out there is Max Scherzer from Washington, who's a multi-Cy Young Award. Say that again. Cy Young Award winner in both leagues. And he's the one that's the real prize out there. But Scherzer, he's a 10-5 guy, so he's got to approve everything that happens. See, they should have thought about that in Milwaukee with Rodgers. But anyway, Scherzer's is still one of the premier pitchers, and I'm looking for him to make a move. And it's got to go to a team that needs pitching. Are you listening to me, Yankees? Okay, my rankings are I'm still like the Giants in front. The Giants may have a chance to get Scherzer because, frankly, that's all they need is a little bit of pitching. They got the best shortstop in baseball in Brandon Crawford. They got a good first baseman, Brandon Belton. These guys hit the heck out of the ball. So I'm looking for San Francisco to make a move. Next, I got Houston. Houston added Kendall Graveman from Seattle to give Dusty Baker a little bit more action in the bullpen, could be. But, Houston is loaded with offensive talent with Altuve, Courier, Herrera, and they're just dynamite. And if Justin Verlander ever gets off the IR list, he can come in and give him the pitch. I don't think he's going to make it back this year. Third, I got the Dodgers. Look at Clayton Kershaw and Walker Buehler can't carry this team themselves. They need hitting. Corey Bellinger came back from the IR. He can't even hit 200. That's the Mendoza line. Yeah. Mookie Betts and Corey Seager are on the IR, and they're not coming back anytime soon. So Los Angeles has got some problems, even though they're a heck of a ball club. The fourth, I got the Red Sox. What can I tell you about the Red Sox? You got Rafael Devers, Alexander Bogart. They're just Martinez, J.D. Martinez. These guys are killers at the plate. But guess what? They need more arms. And Chris Sale, who had, I think, Tommy John surgery at the end of last year, he's been rehabbing in the minors. And if some of the guys out there remember me talking about Josh Hader from the Brewers, how if you were a left-handed hitter, you don't want to face Josh Hader. Well, you don't want to face Chris Sale either if you're from the left side, because he's almost comes from right field. I mean, he's absolutely dangerous. He's lethal. But, he's got to have a solid arm. 5, I got the Tampa Bay Rays. They just got Nelson Cruz, the big slugger. I think he's hit something like almost 300 home runs in his career, first-class player. They got rid of Rich Hill, who was doing nothing. They gave him to the Mets. He'll do nothing with them up there. I go to Washington, or Chicago, White Sox. I say this every week. They still surprise me. They got great pitching, Dallas pitcher Lucas Giolito, Lance Lynn. They got an all-star shortstop, Anderson. But they still need more. They have surprised me thus far, but the American League Central is so bad. Cleveland's 9 games out, and they're not even going to come close. I wouldn't be surprised if Chicago wins this division by double digits. I got San Diego next. It's on number 7. San Diego made a heck of a deal getting Adam Frazier from the Pirates, who aren't going anywhere. They're about as bad as Arizona, Daniel. Adam Frazier leading the league in hitting, I think. I'm not sure. He's pretty close to it. Just going to give the Padres more pop. When you got Will Myers and Jurickson Profile and all these guys, you got Fernando Tatis Jr., who's killing it. I think San Diego would be in the market for Max Scherzer too. Number 8, I got Milwaukee. Milwaukee's led by Brandon Woodward and Corbin Burns, 2 great pitchers, really good pitchers, great pitchers. They were both all-stars. And get this, Milwaukee's leading their division by 7 games. And they are losing. They are the worst hitting team in the National League. As my brother Bro says, go figure. How do you lead the league with good pitching and are last in hitting? Well, the Brewers have proven it can be done.
Yeah.
Number 9, I got Oakland. Oakland just got Starling Marte from the Marlins. Oakland's a very good team. Overall, they're good. They got good pitching. They got good hitting. They're going to go someplace. I think where are we there? They are 6 behind Houston. They got a good chance of catching them too. The Mets, all pitching. They got the home run leader in Alonso, who was a Gator. Go Gators. They got Rich Hill. I'm not sure Rich Hill is going to help them from the Marlins, from the Rays. But however, if you got Jacob deGrom, who's now coming back off the IR, he's leading the league in strikeouts, or was leading the league in ERA. He's leading the league in hitting against him. He's just a killer. And if he comes back strong, then the Mets can actually sweep that division. Number 11, I got the Blue Jays, disappointing me terribly. They need pitching, seriously. They got, Guerrero Jr., who's knocking a heck out of the ball. They got Seaman from Oakland, who's an all-star. But look, those guys can't carry them either. They need pitching. 12 for the Yankees. The Yankees are sorry. I don't even know why I got them at 12. They got Gallo, big deal. Okay, there's going to be 3 big, strong guys on the line instead of 2. They all chase curveballs. They're going to strike out anyway. So Yankees, what do they need? Pitching, of course. They got Garrett Cole and the Domingo. I watched this game the other night. Domingo Gurman was pitching against the Red Sox. Listen to this. He had a no-hitter going into the 7th inning and loses the game 5-4 because they came back absolutely treacherous for the Yankees. They couldn't. You could see the look on their faces. They were just defeated. I don't know how you come back from that. Maybe they won't. 13, I got Seattle. Seattle's all around a good ball club, but they're not going to catch Houston either. 14 is Cincinnati. Cincinnati is an excellent team. Has been all year. They're a little bit over 500. I thought they would do better than that. Nick Castellanos, who was leading the league in hitting when he got hurt, got hit by a pitch, got a fractured wrist. I don't think he's coming back this year or not. So, 15, I got the Philadelphia Phillies. They got Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, and Zach Eflin. Their pitching is good. Their hitting is poor. They're barely a 500 team, but someone's got to be 15. And last but not least, I'm not going to get into your guys. I'm going to go to my Angels. I dropped them all the way down to 18 because Mike Trout and Anthony Rendon are still on the IR list and don't look like they're coming back anytime soon. The Angels desperately need pitching and they need more hitting. If Trout and Rendon don't come back, then Ohtani can hit 1,000,000 home runs and this team isn't going anywhere. That's it in a nutshell, Daniel.
Yeah, and I love it. I love how you break it down and you give it to all of us here, those of us that are paying attention to baseball every day, and some people that may not be paying attention that much, but to run it down and, give us your standings, your thoughts, your feel in the moment as it's happening throughout the season, which you've done so awesome and incredibly throughout the years to really just break it all down. So I love hearing it and love getting your thoughts.
One more thing before we break off into something else.
Yeah, go ahead.
When I was watching, now I get to watch the Angels because I have the MLB package. I watched Ohtani the other night. First of all, he had the night before he hit a home run. He's pitching the next night. I forgot who he was pitching against because I was so mesmerized by the kid. He pitched 7 innings, gave up 5 hits, 1 run, struck out 8, and hit a home run. What do you do with a player like this? Last night he hit another home run. He drove in 3 runs. He's got, 38, 39 home runs at over 80 RBIs. The young man is supernatural. And frankly, I think that he's a leader for the American League MVP. I know, you're stretching it, Papa Joe, you're stretching it, but look it. This kid's the real deal. If LA can creep up a little bit more until Trout and Rendon come back and starts hitting with this kid, and then he keeps pitching the way he's doing, the sky's the limit for Los Angeles, which is why during the MLB draft, the Los Angeles Angels took 20 picks. They took 20 pitchers. They don't need hitting.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, you look at who addressed what. The Arizona Diamondbacks, they should have been able to, draft the first 30 picks. But, that's just my thought, my feelings. But,
Pittsburgh is worse than Arizona, though.
Well, make me feel better just a little bit. But it's been tough, Arizona. It's been very tough. First team that I ever got to see, of all of my teams that I have, the first team I ever got to see win a championship, 2001. Started a string of events for me. 2001, they won. 2003, Syracuse won the national championship for basketball. 2007, my Ducks won. 2006, Italy won the World Cup. 2010, Spain won the World Cup, got 2 Euros on either side of that. And in 2019, my Raptors won a championship in the NBA. So, waiting on you, Jacksonville. What are we doing? Trevor Lawrence and the crew. So, PJ, let's get to football. Let's get to football for a second. And college football realignment. You're big about, the SEC. How did you react to, now mind you, and I can't believe it's been a week. I mean, this really should show you to appreciate every second, every moment of your life. Don't take anything for granted. Because last week I was in Charlotte, and at this time last week, I was interviewing coaches in the Atlantic Division. I believe at this time last week, I was interviewing Wake Forest. Was it Wake Forest? No. It was Florida State. So I was actually interviewing Florida State this time last week. So can't believe it's been a week. But while I was out there in Charlotte, somebody said to me, and I was just keyed in. I was just focused on everything going on with the ACC. I wasn't looking at anything else. I was just zeroed in, locked in, 14 schools. I interviewed them all. 51 players/coaches interviewed in total. And those will be coming to you for the next 2 weeks on Wake Up Call in 2 fantastic specials. Next week is the Atlantic. The week after is the Coastal Division. And you're going to get to hear from every single team in the ACC. In my personal questions with them. But when I was down there, somebody said to me in passing, "What do you think about Oklahoma and what's happening?" And I'm sitting here like, "What's happening?" Because I wasn't even like doing anything. I was just focused on the ACC. I was doing nothing else. And they said, "What do you think about Oklahoma leaving for the SEC?" Or I was focused on the ACC. And they said, "What do you think about Oklahoma leaving for the SEC?" And I've started to, this week really talk about a lot of different pieces. You're an SEC fan. You got a lot of respect for the SEC. You're a Gator. What do you think about the notion of Oklahoma and Texas leaving the Big 12 to join the SEC. What does it mean for the Big 12? What does it mean for the SEC? And are you shocked that Oklahoma and Texas would want to do that?
No, because what are we talking about here? We're not talking about football games. We're talking about money. You know, I mean, look at Oklahoma and Texas are wonderful programs. They got pretty big budgets too. But when you look at the budgets of Florida, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, now their budgets are, and the money they make is over $100 million a year. Now, when you're out there at another conference and you're thinking, why can't I get some of that money? Why can't our conference do this? I'm not sure Texas and Oklahoma want to hang around anymore. I think they see the money. They're saying, yeah. The only problem I have is that if they join the SEC, which looks like they will, everyone's going to be beating up on each other, and the rest of the conferences, like the Big Ten and the ACC, may be able to squeeze in at the end of the year for the championship.
Yeah.
But can you imagine Oklahoma playing Alabama and Texas playing Florida every year, and Georgia and LSU? I mean, these games are you can't miss these games. You can't miss them because, frankly, Oklahoma plays just like an SEC team. They're fast, and Texas is going to be just as fast if they get their way. So I think it has to do with money, Daniel. I'm not sure what I used to think of is that the Big 12. I guess is not going to be anything. Texas A&M is in the SEC. You know, you're talking about one superpower that's going to really change the landscape of college football as we see it.
Yeah, you know, and we're looking at potentially a return to the mega conferences. How about this? How about this? And how about this? The Big 12, and I brought this up during the week, and we're going to talk about it in hour number 2 as well. But you know I've covered the American Athletic Conference. A little tutorial, a little history on the American. When I covered the Big East, and I went to Rhode Island for the first time, I was in Rhode Island, and Syracuse was there, Louisville, Pittsburgh, they were all there. Temple was coming in for the first time I ever got to see Steve Addazio. And so, looking at all this, that was the beginning of the end. So Mike's got this conference and all this stuff going on. I remember Charlie Strong, I sat down with him, he was a Louisville head coach, and he was leaving for Texas. And I remember sitting there wanting to tell him the day I met him, don't go, because in 3 years they're going to fire you. And in 3 years they fired him from Texas. And being in that room, seeing the conference the way it was, and then knowing that teams were leaving, when they left, the American Athletic Conference, of any conference in college football Division 1A, was, in my opinion, affected worse than anybody else. They were left with 3 schools of the Big East. UConn, who represented the Big East, South Florida, who didn't make sense in the Big East, and Cincinnati, who didn't make sense in the Big East. And Temple was coming back. The year after Temple decided to come back, the Big East dissolved. The name was taken by the Catholic 7 basketball schools, and they kept the name and they kept the logo. Mike Oresco was no longer the Big East commissioner. Mike Oresco had 3 teams and a team that just came back in Temple. Mike Oresco could have laid down and died. He could have been a rug for college football. He could have told those 4 schools, go wherever you want to go. He had no name for the conference and no logo. That year, they worked to figure it out. Louisville was leaving. Louisville won a championship. I was down at the 2013 championship game for the NCAA men's basketball tournament in Georgia, in the old Georgia Dome, which now Mercedes-Benz Stadium is down there. And so I got to stand there with Mike Oresco. They got the name. They got the logo. I was with him from the beginning of the beginning of the beginning. He put together a conference that featured 13 schools, 12 of them in football. Wichita State had come in for everything but football. Navy came in for football only. And we had all these schools in there. They just let UConn go. They have 11 schools for football. And 2 years ago, in Rhode Island, in 2019, for the American Summer Kickoff, I sat there with the rest of the media, and there was a lot more media there than usual. And why? Not because of the American necessarily, but because the Big 12 and Bob Bowlesby, the commissioner, was allegedly looking to poach institutions from the American Athletic Conference to send them through another bashing of realignment, even though the Big 12 and the Power 5 had been stealing coaches out of the American since the institution of the American. Now they wanted to steal the schools. So we sat, and we listened to Mike Oresco speak. And the air of what was going to happen, and when I talked to him on my show, there was this notion of, Dan, I don't know what's going to happen. And kind of just sitting and waiting and praying and hoping. And the Big 12 took none of the schools. Fast forward to 2 years later. The Big 12 is on the verge of losing Oklahoma and Texas, leaving them with 8 schools. Of those 8 schools, TCU was supposed to join the old Big East and had a deal with Mike Oresco. And they're potentially available. Mike now has the opportunity 2 years later to go to the conference that was going to steal from him allegedly, and now he has the opportunity to be the aggressor and go after the schools. After almost a decade from when his conference was affected more than any other conference. If you can really look at this David Goliath thing and not see it, you're crazy. In a decade's time, Mike Oresco went from a commissioner that had no name and no logo to a commissioner that now could take that Power 6 conversation and take the spot of the Big 12, move into the autonomy group, and have a real place at the dinner table. Now that I've set the table, what do you think, Papa Joe, of all that?
It makes sense. It makes sense. What Oklahoma and Texas are doing is unprecedented. I know there's been a lot of activity in football in the last 10 years, but, you're talking about 2 powerful football teams that are going to join the most powerful conference probably in the history of college football. That's the SEC. How do you split that up? How do you split the money up? And your little teams are gonna take advantage of it probably, and go to another conference. I would expect that South Florida and Florida Atlantic and some of these other the small schools go to another conference. If TCU can fly from Texas to the Big East to play football, the rest of these schools can too. But this is unprecedented, and frankly, it's going to be frightening if no one does anything, and the SEC has these teams come in. It's going to be lopsided. It's going to be awful.
Yeah, moves have to be made. And speaking of moves being made, why did the American Athletic Conference decide to leave Providence, Rhode Island, where their headquarters were, to make their headquarters Irving, Texas, during the pandemic? And now they have SMU and they have Houston, and the Big 12 has 3 Texas teams, and they can, from Irving, Texas, call Texas Tech, Baylor, and TCU to come visit them in their state. So it's just interesting how these chips are falling seemingly perfectly for some people. And the college football playoff expansion, why are people for a 12 team? Well, because now it makes sense because the SEC is going to have half of them. So, it's just if I tell people this all the time, if you believe in the word coincidence, you better go back to bed and try to wake up again, because don't act like you were born yesterday. So one of the rappers I really like, Chance the Rapper, he says, act like you were born yesterday and you're going to die a fetus. So I would tell you, with all reality here, coincidences don't exist. Okay? Things happen for a reason. Dominoes fall as they do. And the American Athletic Conference moving to Irving, Texas, perfect timing for the potential dissolving of the Big 12. On top of that, a 12-team playoff from a 4-team playoff when they weren't going to make any changes as of last year. Look at that timing as well. And name, image, and likeness, and all these people going south to the SEC. Just, understand, folks, that it is open season. And if you thought that everything was just a total coincidence, you genuinely have learned nothing about life. So, college football is changing. NCAA President Mark Emmert already said last year he has no control over it. So he's the president of nothing. And the autonomy group can do what they want to do. So we are living in a world where anything can happen. And the super conferences may be coming back.
That's true. Frankly, the SEC, if you put Oklahoma in the SEC East and put Texas in the SEC West, you almost have a national championship conferences together, both of them. You got to increase the number of teams that are going to play for a national championship just because it's what's going to happen. Even if you don't like it, even if you like 4 teams, it's not going to work. The teams are going to be beating up each other. I think, Daniel, I don't know if financially it's going to work out great for them because they get the big TV deals that the SEC has, and the schools with the big budgets. Now we're going to add 2 big schools, and they're going to increase their budget. So it's all money, Daniel. It's all money.
Yeah, well, it's a true thing. If you want to figure out what's going on in college athletics, follow the money. So that's what's happening right now. PJ giving us all he can every Thursday in hour number 1 and some change. And as always, Papa Joe, we love it. We're happy you're here. And my mom said this morning that it's nice to hear your voice back on the show, and a good morning to you. So
Thank you. Bye now.
So Papa Joe will talk with you soon, and I'll see you soon.
Okay, bud.
Take
Bye.
care. That coming from PJ here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. We'll take a step aside for a fast break here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and when we spin back around, the wonderful, wonderful opportunity that I have this morning to have for the first time ever this gentleman join the show. Karl Haywood's going to be joining me. We spent time at the ACC Kickoff together, and he'll be with me momentarily here on the show of CSRA Press Sports in East Central Georgia. I told him I had to up my amount of people on the show that have a country accent, since I love country accents. So I told him I needed to up the ante on that, and so we're bringing him on the broadcast in just a moment for the first time ever to join us. He'll be talking with us about the 2021 ACC Kickoff, his history in sports, the current college football climate, which we just started to talk about, and, of course, his coverage of Georgia Tech, as he spent a lot of time around the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. So a lot of great things coming up from Karl Haywood inside of the Cafe Kubal studios here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So stay with us right here through the fast break, hear from these great companies that support Wake Up Call and support you and our community. And then we will jump right into our conversation with Karl right after this. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville beats. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also I think we recognized that, we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career. It's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora on wakeupcalldt.com, your one-stop sports shop, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, where you're listening to internet streaming radio throughout the world, and of course, our internet streaming video on facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, facebook.com/livenowdt, and on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. A lot of ways to get involved with the show, and of course, plenty for you after that in our archives that you can check out by going to any one of the podcasting platforms that you like: MixLR, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Podbean, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, and of course YouTube by searching Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora or searching one word, Wake Up Call DT. So make sure you do that. Inside the Cafe Kubal Studios, 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 208 North Townsend Street, 401 South Salina Street in Syracuse, inside of Golisano's Children's Hospital in downtown Syracuse, on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, and their newest location and first ever drive-thru on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road in North Syracuse, New York, for Cafe Kubal. Thank them for being here with us as our studio partner, and implore you to go out there and get your cup of coffee from Cafe Kubal today, as well as your meals throughout the day. Great sandwiches, great breakfast stuff going on right now. Hopefully you're going through the drive-thru right now and picking something up. And, of course, my favorite chai that they have there as well that's all made in-house. MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin', bringing us into our second piece of today's broadcast. And for the first time ever, I get to welcome this gentleman to the show. And we got to spend some time together at this year's 2021 ACC Kickoff down in Charlotte, North Carolina, in the West End, Charlotte. And now he's here with us, Karl Haywood of CSRA Press Sports in East Central Georgia. And like I said before the fast break, I needed to up the ante. I needed to get more of a dose of Southern accents on my show. So Karl is here with us today, and let's bring him in. Karl, how are we doing today?
I appreciate it, Dan. Appreciate you having me on the show.
Absolutely. And Karl, I mean, you have done, I mean, how many years altogether? I want to paint the picture here because you've gotten to do a lot in sports. How many years cumulatively have you worked in sports?
Started working with sports in 1974.
1974. Okay, so we're looking at almost a 50-year anniversary for you in the world of sports. Thoughts on going on 5 decades in this world?
It has really changed. It's hard to imagine how much it's changed and how much it's going to change in the next couple of years, I think.
Yeah, and when you've seen the changes over the last 40-plus years, what are some of the biggest changes you've seen in collegiate athletics? So what are some of the things that maybe stick out to you?
And I guess maybe it's my opinion, but I think it's going more toward almost being like a semi-pro league instead of a college football league. When I was covering early years of college football. The young men were expected to go to college and get a college degree. In fact, up until I think it was 1982, the NFL did not take players in the NFL draft until they had finished 4 years of college. I think in 1983 was the first year that they took players, but the USFL took players after 2 or 3 years of college, and it just changed from there. And since then, it's just been a lot of players are not really. It doesn't seem like it's so much college as it is just football.
Yeah, did you ever think that there would be a world where collegiate athletes would be paid, where we would have name, image, and likeness, their opportunity to each be essentially their own small businesses? What's your take on that, to get into name, image, and likeness? I know it's something you wanted to talk about on today's show, so you speak on the changes you've seen over 40-plus years, and this has got to be one of the biggest of them all. So what can you say about, did you ever anticipate something like this happening, and just what you would like to discuss with name, image, and likeness, because I know it's a topic that's important for you to get to today.
Yeah, Dan. There again, it's just my opinion. I'm old school football, and I still believe that's the way it should be played. Coach Paul Johnson, who was at Georgia Tech, he coached old school football, and it was just really amazing to see. I think that we have gotten to the point to where we're paying players to play college football, which is, you change it from college to like a semi-pro deal. And the name, image, and likeness to me is, you used to, everybody said there is no I in team. Well, to me, you've changed it from team to TIAM, which it means, to me it's the team, or this is about me, TIAM. You can't, I know from, and I only played high school football, and I loved it. And I still love football. I think it's a great way to learn. You get out there on the field, and I learned as much on a football field as I learned in any classroom, because you learn that when you think you can't make another step, you always can if you make yourself. And you learn to depend on the guy next to you, to your right, to your left, in front of you, behind you, whatever. You learn what you can do and what you can't do, and you work as a team. When you get to the point to where your name, image, and likeness of an individual player, you're not so much team anymore. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it puts a real pressure on the team concept and the players who don't get a chance to sign a NIL contract. I mean, you're expecting, I guess, probably 2/3 of the team are not going to get a contract. You're expecting them to play above their level to make you look good and to keep up your contract. Do you think that contributes to the team concept?
No, and that's the thing. I mean, that's what we're looking at right now, and that's one of my greatest concerns with all of this is, I understand that the NCAA has been making money hand over fist, and I understand the plight of the student athletes saying, listen, we're making you all this money, and you just get to sit there, in your chair and enjoy it, and we don't get to make anything. My concern is the locker room. My concern is, and I brought up a bunch of this on the show before, but to kind of just, go through it and, in an abridged version, you take a bunch of different situations. One of them being that Karl and I are playing quarterback for Georgia Tech. I get a $50,000 deal because I'm the starting quarterback, and so I go to this dental office, and I shoot all these video commercials that are played during games because I'm Dan Tortora and I'm your quarterback. Well, I lose my starting job in week 3 to Karl. Now, this dental office has $50,000 spent on me. I'm not the quarterback. I'm on all their commercials and during all the games, and I'm not the starting quarterback. Do they get to back out? What happens with the money? Do they call Georgia Tech and say, listen, we put $50,000 on Dan Tortora. We're a laughingstock right now that he's not the starter. You need to sit Karl and play Dan because we look stupid during the games. Are they boosters? Do they sit on the board? Can they have pull with the chancellor or the president? How does this all work out? And are Karl and I fighting in the locker room? Are we fighting in practice? Are we trying to split the team and I have my receivers and he has his? That's but one example. So going off of what you said, Karl, I throw that back to you because I feel like that's where you were getting with the locker room dynamic.
Yeah, and there's really another phase to it too. But I agree with you. You wind up with part of the team siding with one player and part of the team siding with another one. Well, how do you make the team cohesive again? I think that Coach Dabo Swinney spoke really well to that at the kickoff event. I mean, he tried to tell what kind of situation it's going to make for him and his team, yet he has been smart and got economics professors and others involved at the school trying to get the players to work their programs or their NIL contracts right before making the money go into certain benefit programs before they get out of college. And then they get the benefit of it, which is a good idea. But another thing that the players, I understand everybody wants, and they look at it like, well, the college football is making so much money. Yeah, they are. And the TV contracts have done that. TV, I'm sorry, but TV, in a lot of cases, when you look at what they get involved in, they take control of it because of the contracts they have.
Yeah.
And they've pretty much done that with college football. But you also got to understand that football at all of these schools pays for ain't no telling how many programs, athletic programs that you wouldn't have at those schools. They generate so much money and so much enthusiasm in the school and the team and the other teams that they get to benefit the other programs, field hockey, lacrosse, cross country, track and field, basketball, all those benefit from the money generated by college football. You're talking millions and millions of dollars every Saturday. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, and that's the thing with the TV contract. I mean, and that's what's coming up right now with realignment. You know, the TV contracts, the ballooning of the contracts, the networks, and the different things that are already out there. That's putting everybody in a situation. You know, I'm making a list right now of the dissolving of the Big 12, and in the dissolving of the Big 12, where are they going to go? I think they're going to go to the American, the ACC, the Big 10, the SEC, and the Pac-12. I think they are going to separate themselves amongst these, this group. And the question is, and we were just talking about it with Papa Joe in hour number one, why would Oklahoma and Texas put themselves in a situation where they have to play Florida, Georgia, Alabama, LSU? Why would they do that to themselves? Money. And making the money, yeah, they might only have 8 wins. Oklahoma might be an 8-4 team. Texas might be a losing record team. They might be a 5-7 team. But as we look at the situation, like you said, with TV contracts and everything that's going on, you know, that's the thing I don't like. When they're talking about, oh, well, should this team go to the American? Well, they're going to lose money if they leave the Big 12 and they go to the American because they don't have the TV rights and they'll have to renegotiate the TV rights and this, that, and the other. It shouldn't be about that. It should be about, is it a good fit? Is it good for our kids? Is it good for whatever happened to competition? If I'm Oklahoma or Texas, I'm never getting out of the SEC alive. Maybe one time for Oklahoma can I get out of something if I'm on the other side of Alabama, but I'm not getting out of the SEC alive if I go there. I never thought I'd see a day where Oklahoma and Texas would want to join the SEC. Now, would they want to join the American, say, okay, we can fight with them? Would they want to join the ACC, especially the Coastal Division, and say we can fight with that because there's a different champion every year? Would they want to go to the Big Ten and say, okay, we got to beat a couple schools, but a lot of the schools are bottom feeders? Would they want to go to the Pac-12 where really nobody stood up in the last couple of years, and when they have, it's been a different team? It would make sense competitively for Oklahoma and Texas to go literally anywhere else but the SEC. But when it comes down to TV deals and money, you go to the SEC, and what do you say? What do you say to your fan base? Hey, we're never going to win a national championship. We're never going to get out of this thing without 2 or 3 losses. But we as a school are going to make a ton of money. So you should come and watch our 5-7 Texas team because we're never going to get out of the basement of the SEC. However, we're going to get a lot richer. I mean, what does that do for the fans? Nothing. So, I mean, and what does it do for the student athlete? I mean, yeah, you get to play against the best competition, but you're on a team that's not going to really win them. I mean, why go to the SEC besides money? Besides the prestige and the money, you don't, I mean, for competition, Why? All the teams in the SEC have been trying to figure out how to beat Alabama, and nobody can figure it out outside of maybe once a year, sometimes. But I mean, that's where I get frustrated, is that competitively, it's the best conference in football. But are they going there for competition, or are they going there because they want to make more money?
I agree with you. I think there again, it goes back to you take a look at television and what they do and how they do it. And they started out with these conference networks, the SEC network, the Big 12 network, the Big 10 network. And they, over the course of the last 5-6 years, they've seen what these networks can do. The ACC was one of the last to create their network a couple of years ago. And yet, now you come down, and it's really consolidated down to the point of where just about the only two conferences that put somebody in the 14 playoff is the SEC and the ACC. So the benefit now will be to the ACC if they can catch some of these good schools. That part of it, I say, I don't know because I don't know the figures. Maybe you do. But I would say that over the past few years, because they don't have the competition and the teams, I would say the Big 12 network is probably not generating the income that they need to. And I would say that even though Oklahoma and Texas may not win the conference, the fact that they're playing in the SEC network, there are going to be more and more people watching the games because they're going to watch the SEC network. That's going to generate more money for the TV network, just pulling it all. And in the process, the players will actually, I mean, I hate to say it, but they're going to get more exposure because of who they're playing. They're going to be on TV more. Now, I'm one of those that, TV doesn't necessarily put people in the seats at the stadium. Granted, I watch a lot of games on television. If you're going to keep up with all the teams in the conference, you pretty much have to watch it on TV. But I don't see that. I'm in agreement with you. It should not be about the money. Yet, that Coach Sweeney said, it's the money that's causing this problem. And it's the money that's going to take college football down if we're not careful. And I think this year, that's just me, in my opinion, I think it's going to be a negative thing for college football, particularly with the climate, with everything else that's going on. It's going to be a negative for college football that these players are out there making money playing college football. They've got, Coach Sweeney made a point. He said, don't tell me you can't work somewhere. He went on scholarship at the University of Alabama.
Yeah.
He worked. He worked in the afternoon after practice and after school. So, they've got the best classes. They've got the best facilities. They got all the meals they want, but a lot of them don't want to eat those meals. They want to eat somewhere else and spend money. Well, but that's their choice. They're getting their education paid for. And if they will go to school and get the degree when they get out of school, whether they play pro football or not, they will have a good degree and can get a really good job. But they don't want to talk about that. TV does not want to talk about that. Yeah. They want to put, just like you said, in the case of where you talked about you were the quarterback and I was the quarterback, they want to put the one in there that's going to put people watching the program and watching the people sit there around the table and talk about this and that and who and what they're doing and all how they're going to do it. And this is who's going to win. This is who's going to score the points. That's what they want because that generates income and viewership for them. That's just the way I see it.
Yeah, they're coming from Karl Haywood here with me today, CSRA Press Sports in East Central Georgia. And to look at some of the numbers for fiscal year 2019, since you brought it up, the Big Ten brought in $781.5 million, which resulted in payouts of about $55.6 million to each of their 14-team conferences, 12 longest-standing members. Maryland and Rutgers received smaller revenue share amounts. So looking at that, but they also received loans from the conference against future revenue shares. So Maryland, and we'll talk about that in a second, I think made a very premature, not so intelligent decision of leaving the ACC. The 10 teams in the Big 12 reported $439 million in 2019. Payouts went from $38.2 million in the Big 12 to $42 million per school. The Pac-12 reported $530.4 million, payouts of $32.2 million per school. The SEC reported $720.6 million for fiscal 2019, paying their schools $45.3 million to the 13 schools that got full shares. Mississippi did not because they were banned from postseason play. And the ACC reported in 2019 fiscal year $455.4 million, paying each of their 14 member schools anywhere from $27.6 million to $34 million, plus $6.8 million to Notre Dame. So, I mean, looking at what these schools are making, on average, anywhere from the high 20s to low 30s in millions of dollars just by revenue sharing within the conference. You know, you could be Syracuse and have a horrible record. You could be Clemson and be undefeated, and you're still bringing in $30 million. So, you know, I mean, there's a lot of money being shared amongst all of these teams, and there's a big benefit of being a part of these conferences because, I mean, you look at it, what does it have to do with winning? You know, I mean, Karl, you and I, we look at jobs and say, okay, you do a better job. What we were taught growing up is the better you do, the more money you make. The more that you bring to the table, the more you benefit from it. Well, in this revenue sharing thing happening in collegiate athletics, you just got to be in a good conference. You could be a bottom feeder and make money. You could be Kansas and not win a football game an entire season, and you pull in $20 million. So, I mean, it's got to be nice to be at the bottom of the barrel and still be taking home $27, $30 million in this thing. I mean, and this is what revenue sharing is. You jump into a conference. Syracuse left the Big East, and so did Pittsburgh, and so did Louisville. They jumped into the ACC, and now Syracuse can go 1-10 or 10-1 and be in a situation where they're going to take home $30 million just because they have ACC next to their name.
Yep, you're right. And now I really like the figures that you pointed out. I didn't know that. And I would ask the question, why would the ACC be paying Notre Dame nearly $9 million when they didn't even participate in college football in 2019 in the ACC? They had their own network contract with NBC. Why are you paying them almost $9 million? I mean, that doesn't make any sense to me. But then what you're saying and the way it worked out, going back to when I was in high school, that's been a long time ago in the mid-'60s, Bobby Dodd had been the coach at Georgia Tech. Great coach. In fact, the coach's award every year is the Bobby Dodd Trophy. He became the athletic director at Georgia Tech. And during the time that he was there, that was about the time that TV started covering and carrying college football games. And Georgia Tech had a lot of games on television. They played Auburn, they played Alabama, they played the big schools every year, and they were on TV a lot. Well, and they were in the SEC at the time. And at that time, the conference got together and met, and they talked about dividing the money up between the individual schools.
Yeah.
The TV money. And Coach Dodd spoke up and said, wait a minute, we're on TV all the time. Why do we want to give Vanderbilt or Ole Miss or Florida money that we generate on TV? They don't. You're going to make them as powerful as we are by giving them all this money. Why would we do that? Which is another point. I mean, I agree that revenue sharing is great to a certain extent, but then you're the one who's doing the work out there, very similar to the NIL program. You got certain players out there doing the work, but yet so-and-so get the benefit of it. Do you understand?
Yeah.
And in the process, Georgia Tech withdrew from the Southeastern Conference, and that was almost a fatal mistake. They went independent, figuring that TV would follow them because of who they were and what they did. It wound up, Tech went independent, and being independent, Notre Dame was independent. The only way Tech could win anything was to win the national championship, and they couldn't do it. And it really almost destroyed the program, which I hate to see because I'm a Georgia Tech fan. Fortunately, former quarterback Kim King got people together and resurrected the program and got money invested back in the program, and eventually they joined the ACC, and it made a world of difference. And I think, I'm not really in favor of the realignment, and I would like to get your ideas of what you're thinking about the realignment in the SEC and how it's going to go. I don't see it can go east-west anymore. It's going to have to go north and south, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, when we look at realignment, and I've kind of, been putting this together and there will be an article coming out on wakeupcalldt.com on our articles page where you can check out at any time over 450 articles that I've written here over the years. And I will be breaking down my dissolving of the Big 12, which I think is something that very well could be happening. The SEC, as it stands right now, has 14 schools. Now the question is where do you put this, and how do you put this? And where would you put with 16 with Oklahoma and Texas coming in? Do you put Texas with Texas A&M, and then essentially put Oklahoma with Kentucky and Tennessee and Florida and Georgia and Vanderbilt and whatnot? Now, this is already a stacked conference. I argued a couple of years ago that the college football playoff could have just been the SEC, that outside of Clemson, arguably, as teams were getting better, I said we're going to a place where it's going to be Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and Texas A&M, or Alabama and LSU in there. But, the way that this stands right now, Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher, he did an incredible job behind Alabama, and he's still forgotten. He went 8-1 in the conference. He went 9-1 overall. But Alabama went 13-0, 10-0 in the conference. And so, Texas A&M, as good as they did, everybody's in the shadow of Alabama, who casts a very large shadow. The Florida Gators on the other side were 8-4. They were overshadowed by Alabama. Georgia was 8-2. They were overshadowed by Alabama. So I think, for me, for Oklahoma and Texas to come in here, I see Texas 5 or 6 wins, maybe. And then in the beginning, and then I see Oklahoma, maybe they can pull off 8 wins, maybe they can pull off 7. But do you really want to be that? If you're Oklahoma, do you really want to be in the middle of the pack with Kentucky and Tennessee? If you're Texas, the rivalry with Texas A&M, is that really what Texas A&M wants? They join the SEC. Do they really want to be with you? Do they want to go up against you anymore? Is that something that they want to revive at all? So, I think realignment's going to do a lot of things, but there's teams in the SEC that are already forgotten. Vanderbilt, Mississippi State, Arkansas, Ole Miss to a certain extent. Now they got Lane Kiffin, so I know that, there's some swagger back. But, every single year it's Alabama. Texas A&M should have been in the college football playoff, in my opinion. I had them in there as third. But Texas A&M, Florida, Georgia. What does this do for Oklahoma? What does this do for Texas? You're coming from a conference that doesn't play defense, and you're going into a conference that is a step underneath the NFL. So, will it push you? Yes. Could it help in recruiting? Yes. Are you going to get more money in revenue sharing? Yes. But will Oklahoma or Texas ever get out of this thing alive? I don't think so. And, I don't think it matters which division they put them in. Whoever's in Alabama's division better say night-night. And whichever one of those two teams gets into Florida's division, well, you got a shot, you got a chance. If I'm Oklahoma, I'm begging to get in the East because I don't think Texas is going anywhere, but Oklahoma's got a shot to at least do something. But, this is every single coach in the SEC is faced with the daunting task of beating Alabama and winning an SEC championship, which nobody does. And if you don't do that within a few years, you get fired. So, Les Miles, remember, folks, was fired for having an 81% winning percentage, but he lost 3 games in a row, which hadn't happened in years at LSU. He was fired for winning 81% of his games and losing 19% of the time. So, you and I both know, Karl, that the SEC is a different world, and every coach that's hired is hired to beat Alabama and win an SEC championship, and it's a ridiculous thing to do to a coach because nobody does it. And even in the chance that they do it one year, then they expect you to do it the next year. If I'm a coach in the SEC, I probably have a lot of anxiety because I'm making a ton of money, but I'm probably going to get fired in 3 or 4 years no matter what I do. So I don't know why Oklahoma and Texas would want to do it outside of money. And I think being in the SEC and not being Alabama is the most stressful job in college football.
I will agree with you. And let's face it, from a reporter standpoint, and just my opinion, I don't see anybody really challenging or beating Alabama as long as Coach Saban wants to stay there. Because you can take a look at their roster. and the way they play, a lot of their second unit could start for most other teams. And let's face it, when a recruiter from Alabama goes in to talk to a recruit, 9 times out of 10, all he's got to say is, hello, I'm so-and-so from the University of Alabama. And they say, where do I sign? Now, I think that's part of the reason why they're wanting to go to a 12-team playoff instead of 4. Because when you do that, you're going to wind up with 6 teams out of the SEC in the 12-team playoff, at least. Where does Texas and Oklahoma stand a better chance of making that playoff?
Yeah.
They might make it in the Big 12. But there again, you just got through saying the Big 12 doesn't have the defense that the SEC does. Doesn't have the defense that the ACC has. So the only way you're going to beef up that defense and be able to play that competition week in and week out is to play SEC teams. It's kind of like the teams that we talked to that played Georgia Tech in the offense that Paul Johnson run. They would tell you, the defensive players, you ask them, what was the toughest offense you had to face this past year? Yeah. And most every one of them would say Georgia Tech. And they would say, because you can't match what they do in a week's time preparing for them. You can't do it at the speed they do. I mean, I think that, and a good example is you go back to when Florida played Ohio State in the national championship when Tebow was there. The first game they played. Everybody said Florida shouldn't have been there. They beat Ohio State like a drum. And it was because of the speed of Florida. Ohio State was not used to that speed. They couldn't get off the offensive line fast enough for those defensive players blowing in the backfield. It's like you said, it's a totally different atmosphere and a different challenge. Now, is that a smart move for Texas and Oklahoma to do what they did? I don't know. I don't know the money. I don't know what they're trying to do, other than I see it as it may be 6 to 8 teams of the 12 teams from the SEC.
Yeah.
You can't tell. You can't tell. I do think it's really going to hurt schools like Vanderbilt, where they may be at the bottom of the SEC now. They're going to be really at the bottom when Texas and Oklahoma comes in. Sad to say. And I hate that because I like Vanderbilt. I go back and say again, I really think the one conference, and I know you like the Mid-Atlantic, right?
The American Athletic, yeah.
The American Athletic, okay. Yeah. I think one of the conferences that stand to benefit the most is the ACC. If they can pick up a couple of more really good schools and good teams, it's going to make the conference competition better.
Yeah.
And they're already, with Clemson, they almost got a lock on one of the positions in the playoff. North Carolina's going to give a pretty good challenge this year, I believe. And it's going to make the whole conference better, I think. Now, but you tell me what you think. And do you think that the SEC is going to go to a north-south division, or are they going to stick with the east-west? I don't see how you line up east-west.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is it really, I mean, in a world we live in, and we talked about it, when we were sitting around the table at the ACC Kickoff, I think you call it north, south, east, west, it doesn't matter because, let's be real, the Big 12 has 10 teams, they're going to have 8, and the Big 10 has 14. The names don't even make sense. The regions don't make sense.
That's right.
The best thing about the American Athletic Conference is they call themselves the American, which means any team in America can play in the American Athletic Conference.
That's right.
So
I agree with you.
This is how I see realignment going. So you give me your thoughts. This is how I see realignment. I'm gonna give you where I think everybody's gonna go. And like I said, I'll write it in a more expansive article, but this is why you listen to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora live Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time, because you guys get the information first. And
don't let me make you spin your...
No, it's okay. I want to get your thoughts on it, because I'm writing this article, but I've been trying to break it down, and I'm excited about it, and I want to get your take in the moment. So for those of you that are on here, you get the benefit of this. And for those of you that are not, you can listen back to it or watch back to it. But the article will be coming with it today. And I'm here with Karl Haywood. Very happy to have Karl here of CSRA Press Sports in East Central Georgia. This is how I see everything happening. The Big Ten will get Iowa State because the Big 12 makes no sense with Iowa State. The Big Ten will get so in the dissolving of the Big 12, all 10 schools going somewhere else. The Big Ten will get Iowa State for the Iowa rivalry. They will lose Maryland, who will rejoin the ACC, which will leave the Big Ten with 14 schools. So they'll be even still. Maryland will rejoin the ACC and go to the Atlantic Division. In the Coastal Division, West Virginia will join and renew their rivalries with Pittsburgh as well as Syracuse. The SEC will get Oklahoma and Texas and move to 16. The Pac-12 will go to 14 in their addition of Oklahoma State and Kansas State, which will help with them having Colorado, who makes no sense in the Pac-12. And the American Athletic will get back to 12 schools after losing UConn by bringing in TCU, who was originally scheduled to join the Big East before realignment happened back in 2012, when they lost Syracuse, Pittsburgh, and eventually after that in 2013 or 14, Louisville. So TCU, who already had a deal with Mike Oresco when it was the Big East, TCU will join the American Athletic Conference, which will add their third school in the state of Texas, SMU, TCU, who has already played the American Athletic on a non-conference schedule. TCU, SMU, and Houston will all be there. The American, as I said, sent during the pandemic, they moved from Providence, Rhode Island to Irving, Texas. Perfect timing for this, and I don't believe in coincidences. And then I think, of that, so with the ACC getting West Virginia and Maryland and moving the ACC to 16 schools, they will match the SEC with 16 as they take in Oklahoma and Texas. The Big Ten will add Iowa State but lose Maryland, so they'll stay at 14. The Pac-12 will move to the Pac-14 with Oklahoma State and Kansas State, which leaves us Texas Tech and Baylor, which I think the American will make a pull for, which would give the American 14 schools. The American would have 14, the ACC would have 14, the Big Ten would have 14, the Pac-12 would have 14, and the SEC would have 16, which would take out the Big 12, move the American into the autonomy group, which would give us the 5 power conferences as we step forward.
That's great. I think you have a really good plan, and I think that's a pretty good idea of where it's going. It makes good matchups. And like you said, the All-American Conference will stand to benefit greatly with it, and they can apply to any team. I mean, any team can apply to the All-American Conference. So I think that you've got a pretty good idea as to how it's going to go. It kind of looking at the map and how it lays out, it's hard for me to imagine how the SEC is going to break out. And if they add the teams that you're talking about in the ACC, you got it pretty well nailed to where they can stay with the Atlantic and the Coastal divisions. But I don't see the SEC staying with East-West, because you wind up with Oklahoma, Texas, Texas A&M, LSU, all in the same side of the division. And you're going to wind up putting, in essence, you're going to put Alabama, Florida, Auburn, Georgia, South Carolina, Kentucky, and Vanderbilt in the East. And, I guess you'll have to move Tennessee to the West. I mean, I don't see how they can stick to a East-West conference. I mean, I don't. But then I guess they got it figured out. But you got a pretty good idea.
And thank you. And I mean, and that would, again, give every conference at least 14 teams of the 5. And that's where it would be set up. And the American, essentially, what I would imagine they would be doing is the American would realign because, and here's perfect timing for the American, because they went from 12 to 11, they dissolved the divisions of the American East and the American West, and they just had one full conference. Well, now going back to 12, because they dissolved it, now they can reignite it, but they don't have to worry about what the SEC has to worry about, which is where do you put everybody, and do you realign the conference during realignment in and of itself? The American Athletic, because they don't have the East and the West anymore, now they can bring the 2 divisions back, and when they bring the 2 divisions back, if you have TCU, Texas Tech, Baylor, SMU, and Houston, 5 schools in the state of Texas, now you can separate those schools between the 2, and you can figure that out, so you can have Texas representation on one side, Texas representation on the other side, or you can put all the Texas schools on one side and then put the East schools on the other side. But now they have an opportunity to say, okay, we got a couple Florida schools, we got a bunch of Texas schools. The American's in a perfect position to bring back divisions and to not have to realign anybody in the divisions because they got rid of them already. So now they can essentially figure out, where do we put everybody? Where does this make sense? Tulane and Tulsa, where are they going to sit at? UCF and USF, obviously you want to have them in the same because of rivalry, but where do you put, these new teams coming in? And if you bring in TCU and Texas Tech, well, then you keep them in the same. You could put 2 on one side and then SMU and Houston on the other side and have Texas representation on both sides. But the Americans in perfect position at this moment because they don't have their divisions anymore. So when they bring them back, they can unveil who's going to be where, and they can start to really shift this. They have the East and the West, but now, and it made sense the way that they had it set up with the East and the West, but now with bringing in schools like this, they're going to have to figure out, do you really want to put all the Texas schools in one division? What do you think of that? If they were to get TCU, Texas Tech, and Baylor with SMU and Houston, do you put all 5 Texas schools in the West Division, or do you separate the 2 of them?
I'm in agreement with you. I think the American Athletic Conference stands to benefit a lot. And I would not put all 5 Texas schools in the same division. I'd split them up. Now, going by which ones would be the biggest rivalries, and you would try to keep those together, or it might be good to separate. I agree. I would not put all 5 in one division. And they are lined up best, like you said. They don't have anything right now. They can then turn around and set the divisions the way they want to. The ACC has got a good division, Atlantic and Coastal. The one I see having a problem is the SEC figuring out how you're going to divide these teams to where you don't have one division just totally dominated by 1 or 2 teams. And if you're going to add Texas and Oklahoma, to me, the logical thing to do is try to make it as even as possible. Now, how you divide it up to be even, I don't know. That's over my pay grade.
Well, and here's the question, too, with the Big Ten. If you bring in Iowa State for the rivalry with Iowa and you put them in the West of the Big Ten, you would have to move somebody out of the West. And so what would you do with that? If you move Iowa – well, actually, no. No, you would have to do it. So you lose Maryland in the East, you add Iowa State in the West, which means one team in the West of the Big Ten would have to move to the East because the East would lose one and Iowa State would be gained in the West. So they would have to shift somebody in the Big Ten Conference over. So, do you shift Northwestern, Wisconsin, Minnesota? You can't shift Wisconsin because you already have Ohio State and Penn State on the same side with Michigan and Michigan State. So you'd have to maybe look at Illinois, a Purdue, a Nebraska, a Minnesota to shift them over to the East so that you could even things out. But to me, it makes perfect sense. When people say Maryland coming back, but they just joined the Big Ten, almost a decade ago, I would say, yeah, because if the Big Ten can get Iowa State, it makes more sense for them. And Maryland doesn't really give anything to them. And Maryland doesn't have the same amount of revenue sharing money that the other schools get. Neither does Rutgers. So, it would make perfect sense for Maryland to jump. It would make perfect sense for Rutgers to go to the American Athletic, in all honesty. But if the American can get Texas Tech, Baylor, TCU, they're going to do that before they get Rutgers. Maryland makes perfect sense to move because, again, they made a move to leave the ACC. I feel like as they were walking out the door, they were looking over their shoulder like, did we make the wrong decision? And I don't think it's benefited them. Okay, revenue sharing money, yes, but competition-wise, is it benefiting them? Maryland's a forgotten team. By the time you talk about Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, and Wisconsin, maybe Minnesota, and now Indiana, you're the 7th, 8th, 9th team that people are mentioning in the Big Ten, where when you were in the ACC, you had a rivalry with Duke, you push teams, you push yourself to get to the Final Four, you made it interesting in the NCAA tournament. Maryland belongs in the ACC, and so I think if you can bring in a rival for Iowa that really doesn't have a place in the Big Ten rivalry-wise, if you give them a rival and you take out a team that literally has no rivals and nothing in the Big Ten, how easy would that be for the Big Ten to go, hey, Maryland, why don't you leave because you don't fit here? Iowa State, why don't you come in because you have a rivalry with Iowa and we're playing between the Big Ten and the Big 12, which is ridiculous. Iowa State brings in value. Maryland, they're not really losing a lot, but the thing is, there's more value to Maryland in the ACC than it is in the Big Ten.
I agree with you 100%. I think, and let's face it, Maryland is one of the last teams to join, so they're really an outsider as far as the rest of the Big Ten is concerned.
Yeah.
So they just as soon get rid of them, be fine. And they would I'm sure they would like to take in Iowa State, and it would make a good matchup as a rivalry with Iowa, but it also bring in a pretty good rivalry with Michigan, I think. And you got it nailed really good, I think. I haven't studied that much of the other teams. I agree with you. I think the American Athletic Conference stands the best to make ground, but I also think the ACC can make ground too.
And I think there's one team that I didn't mention, and that's because I'm considering where to put them. Now, I could put them, let's say Maryland for some reason didn't leave the Big Ten, which I don't see because it makes perfect sense for them to do this now. I think they're going to regret it twice. So if they don't. But Kansas, their football program is not that great. They just dealt with all the issues with Les Miles and let him go. The ACC stands to gain in basketball if Kansas were to join, because you would have Kansas, North Carolina, Duke, Syracuse, all these storied programs together in the ACC. Football-wise, it would be great for Syracuse, and I know this is my hometown, but Kansas is so bad they would make Syracuse look better. But it also makes sense for Kansas to move to the Pac-12 with Kansas State, so that so they could put Colorado and Kansas State and Oklahoma State together, and essentially have a old Big 12 division and then a Pac-12 division, and almost have the Pac-12, Big 12 as your divisions inside of the Pac to play each other. That would make sense. So I almost lean more on the side of, I would say to myself, if the ACC doesn't get Maryland, then go after Kansas, because it doesn't help you in football, but it helps you overall, and it helps you in basketball as a team that's, typically a number 1 or a number 2 seed. So I would say to the ACC to do that, but I think the Pac-12 makes more sense that they would take Kansas, especially if they lose Texas Tech and Baylor to the American. Then essentially I would be moving Kansas down to the Pac-12, and Oklahoma State and Kansas would go, which would give them the Pac-15, and that would put them in a situation where at least they'd hold the rivalry with Kansas and Kansas State, which would be good for them basketball-wise so that they get more representation. And football-wise, it's not going to matter to them too much on that. The Pac-12 needs all the help they can get. I think the American stands to gain more of the talent and more of the prominence. But Oklahoma State, remember, they have played the American Athletic Conference. They do have relationships there. But, Texas Tech, some of these teams losing money, they're not high on the Big 12 pay grade. Baylor is not high on that in football. Texas Tech is not high on that in football. TCU, people don't even know they play in the Big 12. So those are things that the American can get after. Oklahoma State would be an amazing get for the American Athletic Conference, but if they go to the Pac-12, they give some credence to the Pac-12 football-wise and help them out there. That's something they can look to, because, Oklahoma State's not going to the SEC and have not been really happy publicly from what I saw of Oklahoma, not even talking to them about the decision. So the big question is, in my realignment scheduling, or in my realignment assessment, where does Kansas go? Where would you put them? Do you have the American give them a call? Do you have the ACC give them a call? Or do you send them to the Pac-12 with Kansas State?
I agree with you. I think it'd be a good move basketball-wise, but I really think the best move would be to send them to the Pac-12. I think it would keep a good rivalry and would also generate more interest. I think Kansas coming into the ACC would kind of be a stretch as far as developing a rivalry with some of the ACC teams. That's just what I see. I think the American Athletic Conference stands a good chance to pick up some teams, and I really think Oklahoma State's probably going to go with the Pac-12. That really appears to be the best move for them. And it's really, from listening to you talking, you got some really good ideas, really good plans. It's almost like NFL draft day. Which one do I put here? And who do I take?
Yeah. Since NCAA President Mark Emmert said he has no jurisdiction in college football, so essentially he's the president of nothing. Maybe I should become the president of the autonomy group since I am working this out right now. So
that's right. You should make a fortune in your design of the conferences.
Yeah, I think my redesign is got some weight here, but yeah, releasing it for the first time this morning on the show. So for those of you here on Thursday, July 29th, listening live, you got to hear it, and this article will be coming up today. But Karl, before I let you go, Karl Haywood, CSRA Press Sports in East Central Georgia, love the fact that we got to have you on the show and to be able to talk about a bunch of different things, and I'd love to have you back. Georgia Tech, so near and dear to your heart. Bring me into Georgia Tech. The evolution of Georgia Tech, like you said, was a part of the SEC in the Southeastern Conference. They left. They became independent. They got Paul Johnson from Navy. The triple option came in. And now it's Jeff Collins, who is a guy that I know very well from Temple. And Jeff now is changing everything and taking the identity that Georgia Tech has held for so long under Paul Johnson and turning into something else. What are your thoughts on the evolution of Georgia Tech football?
Well, if you go back, it was Bobby Ross who helped bring Georgia Tech into ACC, and he came from Maryland to Georgia Tech. So it was him and his assistant coaches trying to get Georgia Tech into the ACC. Of course, they applied to the SEC, I think, but they wouldn't receive any support that way. Then Coach George O'Leary and Ralph Friedgen came back to Tech, and they had a good run at Tech. Then Chan Gailey stepped in as a head coach, and Coach Collins was an assistant at Tech for a while. And then he went to Florida as a defensive coordinator, I think. And then he eventually got a head coaching job, and now he's come back to Georgia Tech. They got growing pains. They got growing pains from how do you break into getting the 4- and 5-star recruits that you want to get to be able to compete with the style of offense that he's running, because that's what everybody's running pretty much. Yet he's got his own style. I understand that. And he's done a lot to bring in former players who played for Coach Gailey and he played for Coach O'Leary and Coach Friedgen. He's brought in a lot of them to help with the coaching part of it. He's able to pick up some pretty good recruits, I think. They're going to have a tough schedule this year, one of the toughest in the ACC, I think. It's going to be – I really hate to say it, but I think it's going to be crucial that they play NIU to start the season off. Then they play Kennesaw State game 2. Kennesaw State, the coach at Kennesaw State was an assistant under Coach Johnson. He runs a version of his offense at Kennesaw State, and they're really good at it. Then the next game is Clemson, and then after Clemson is North Carolina. If they have trouble the first 2 games of the season, it's going to be tough for them, I think, mentally to get over the 3-game hump that they've had the last couple of years. Did you understand?
Yeah.
And I hate that. I hate that for the players. I hate that for Georgia Tech. But when you look at the schedule, it's just going to be murder. They get to Duke in the middle of the season, but then after that, it's Virginia Tech, Virginia, Florida. No, it's Notre Dame, and then Georgia. I mean, you're looking at really tough teams to play week in and week out. And if they don't get the positive attitude to start with, and that means getting a win or 2 to begin with, it's going to be hard to make that ball keep rolling and the steam keep going,
Yeah, you bring it up. Georgia Tech's schedule, just seeing it, besides NIU and Kennesaw in the beginning, you're at Clemson on September 18th, right at the beginning of the season. Then you have North Carolina, so you have arguably what the ACC championship game is going to be this year, back-to-back, at Clemson, home against North Carolina. Then you have Pitt, who's pesky. Then you're at Duke, and we'll see where they are. They always kind of underplay what I think they can do. Then you're at Virginia. You got Virginia Tech. You're at Miami later on in the season on November 6th. And then Boston College has gotten better, and like you said, at Notre Dame, and then you have Georgia. Looking at Georgia Tech, they could easily start the season 2-2, and by the midpoint, they could have 4 or 5 losses. So, I mean, Georgia Tech is definitely going to get tested. And Jeff Collins coming in and then having a pandemic year, and really trying to, implement his plan amidst all this craziness is not an easy thing to do, and to make sure that he's recruiting. And you got to remember that it takes about 4 years of you being a coach before you start, you have your entire team recruitment-wise. And during a pandemic and everything else, he's still trying to recruit, and the guys that came in to play this certain offense are not playing that offense anymore. So, I mean, Georgia Tech is going to obviously take some time. Do you like what Jeff Collins is doing? Do you like him as a coach? Do you like the personality? Do you like the decision making? I mean, like I said, I'm coming into his time at Georgia Tech, where I got to spend 2 seasons with him at Temple. But what's your take of Jeff Collins?
Well, I understand his position of trying to, as he said, totally change the culture at Georgia Tech. As I said before, I'm still old school football, so I was an old school guy. But I'm open for change. I'm open for trying to do things and do them the right way. I hope that the team can build the steam that they need to move forward this next year. If they don't this year, it's going to be tough for some of those young kids who have come in the program to be able to go forward after this year and make it a winning program. Now, maybe the schedule lightens up a little bit next year. I don't know. I'd have to look and see. But this year is going to be really tough. And after going through 2 seasons in which you only won 3 ball games, if you don't get those kids a few wins under their belt to start with, your culture and your attitude is going to play only so much of it. It gets in their head, and that's one thing that Coach Johnson said when he came in there. Some of these players had the idea that they just couldn't win, and you got to get that out of their head. They just can't win. Everything seems to go wrong at the last minute, and we lose. So he's trying to get that out of their head, and Coach Collins is trying to do the same thing. You can't let that stick in your head. You've got to go forward. You got to keep moving. Put one foot in front of the other. You can win if you got the winning attitude and you determine that we're going to win this ball game. We're not going to lose it. And there again, you're going into another situation in which you've got the NIL involved here. You're going to have players who are signing contracts, and you're going to have some players who, at Georgia Tech, going to get nothing. Well, how are they going to deal with it? So it's going to be tough, but I'm hoping for the best.
And we voted here, speaking here with Karl Haywood, CSRA Press Sports in East Central Georgia, speaking on all things college football. And him and I were both at the 2021 ACC Kickoff in Charlotte, North Carolina a week ago. And we saw that the media has put in their votes. I mean, you and I, we get to vote, and I put my votes in. My votes in the Atlantic, a little bit different. I had Clemson at the top. I had Florida State at 2. They have NC State at 2, so kind of close there. BC closer there as well. I had Louisville a little bit higher than people had, but Wake Forest and Syracuse toward the bottom, I agreed with. In the Coastal, I had pretty much the same as the majority of the media. North Carolina, Miami at the top. Georgia Tech, Duke at the bottom, and then in the middle with Virginia Tech, Pitt, and Virginia, 1 or 2 spots off. But my Coastal was almost identical, and my Atlantic was a little bit different. But I have Clemson, North Carolina, with Clemson winning the ACC championship. What do you think of the preseason poll? I'll just to refresh everybody's memory here. Clemson, NC State, BC, Florida State, Wake Forest, Louisville, Syracuse. We'll start there. What are your thoughts on the Atlantic? Agree or disagree with the majority of the media that voted that that's how 1 through 7 is going to be?
I'm pretty much in agreement. I think my vote was just about the same. That's the way I see it. I'm hoping at Syracuse. I like the coach at Syracuse. I think he's going to make a difference. I'm hoping he's going to improve things and they get better and better. Yet right now, I don't think they're there yet. And I'm in agreement with pretty much the way it lined up. I see Clemson winning the Atlantic Division and also winning the ACC. I think it's going to be a good ball game. Clemson and North Carolina did not play in the regular season, I don't think. So it's going to be a really good ball game, I think, if Clemson and North Carolina wind up playing for the ACC title.
Yeah, looking at their schedule, which I'll have coming up here in a second, to go to the other side of things and take a look at the Coastal division and where things stack up. And Clemson and North Carolina will not be playing each other this year. And so the only time they would meet is if and when they made it to the ACC championship game. In the Coastal Division, where I said my votes were almost identical to the majority of the media, North Carolina 1, Miami 2, Virginia Tech 3, Pitt 4, Virginia 5, Georgia Tech 6, Duke 7th. Agree or disagree with that side?
As much as I hate to say it about where Georgia Tech winds up, yeah, I have to agree with it. Mostly because this is going to be just a really tough schedule. And I think it's going to be wind up being a pretty good ball game between Duke and Georgia Tech to try to get past that, you know?
Yeah, that's how we see it up against one another here, the Atlantic and the Coastal, 1 through 7, and getting to vote in the poll. Final note here, Karl. Your take on just overall, the ACC kickoff being back, not having to wear a mask, no social distancing, we can shake hands, bump fists, we can eat together, drink together, be around each other. What was your, what did you appreciate most about the 2021 ACC kickoff in Charlotte?
I enjoyed the time there. I got to meet a lot of people that I hadn't talked with since I've been coming. I got to meet some folks. We got to spend some time together. I liked having 3 players from the team at the kickoff event, and it was a good time. We got to hear from the new commissioner, and I think the ACC is going to be headed in a good direction, and I think they pick up some teams due to the alignment.
Yeah, it'll be fun to see what happens from here. Karl Haywood, CSRA Press Sports in East Central Georgia. Karl, as always, I appreciate it. Appreciate your time. Appreciate that you and I got to bond a little bit here at the thing and talk with each other at the 2021 ACC kickoff. Love having you on the show. Would love to have you back, and definitely appreciate you spending some extended time with me today to try and figure out college football.
Well, I really appreciate it, Dan. I've enjoyed your program, enjoyed talking with you, and you got some really good ideas and plans.
Well, I look forward to talking with you soon, and please say hello to the missus for me and send my best, and to my best for all of you down in Georgia, and hopefully you and I will be seeing each other soon.
That sounds good. Take care.
Take care. That coming from Karl Haywood one more time here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, CSRA Press Sports in Georgia. And I very much appreciate having him there and being able to have the time to talk with him on today's broadcast. Welcoming Karl to the show inside the Cafe Kubal studios for the first time ever. So really, really cool to do that, and very happy that we had the opportunity to do something special like that this morning. So with that being said, we're going to take our final step aside of today's broadcast. When we come back, we'll wrap up the show and get you all set and ready to go and on your way to TGIF. I can't believe it's already going to be Friday. I can't believe it's been a week since I've been down in, at this time last week, I was down in Charlotte interviewing the Atlantic Division. Can't even believe it's been a week already. So appreciate your blessings, folks. Appreciate your life. And we'll talk about plenty coming up right after this.
Cafe Kubal Mobile Cafe brings the cafe experience to you. We'll roll out to your neighborhood or office, ready to serve our locally crafted espresso bar to our loyal patrons. Inquire at cafekubal.com. Cafe Kubal, coffee for the soul.
This is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, located on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, is home to over 40 flavors with more than 200 flavors in their total wheelhouse. Sky's the limit for this sweet and savory Central New York company. Keep it local at your parties, fundraisers, wedding showers, baby showers, and more by calling 315-450-MA-PA. That's 315-450-6272 for popcorn bars with custom flavors and colors at your upcoming event. Make sure to visit them on 201 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. And for more information, go to maandpassnacks.com. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you? The Millhouse Market, located on 3790 New York 13 in Pulaski, New York, is worth the drive every time. Make sure you make your way out to the Millhouse Market every Tuesday through Saturday from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. and on Sundays from 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. Open for their drive-through pickup window. Don't even have to leave your car, grab your food, and go. And, of course, their indoor dining and bistro restaurant. Their bistro menu changes every single weekend. So you should go out to the Millhouse Market every weekend and find out what their specials are, because it changes every week. And, of course, their general store with their awesome, awesome products from local companies as well as their company. So helping out the community with honeys from locally sourced places, maple syrups, and literally everything in the community. Just a great, great way for the Millhouse Market to give back to the community, and I appreciate them for all they do. So download their app today from the Google Play or Apple App Store and get yourself out to the Millhouse Market. Absolutely, positively, 1,000% worth the drive every single time. Avicoli is located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York. Open for you Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. You can enjoy Avicoli's in 4 different ways at one location, from their more relaxed, casual dining pizza side to their other side where you can enjoy the fine dining, go on a date, and have a good time. And so Avicoli's with fine dining and casual dining as well as outdoor dining and their bar. And, of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100. That's 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. Make sure you get out to Avicoli's. Monthly, we are there for the Liverpool Athletics special show, which we just got to do this week, and we always appreciate being out there with Liverpool Athletics, which is right down the road from Avicoli's. Canine Camp Dog Daycare and Canine Campground Dog Boarding. Always appreciate everything that they do for our furry-loving friends, including Lily herself, the dog daycare located on 228 Old Bridge Street in East Syracuse, and the campground located on 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, right off of Bridge Street, right by BJ's. There for you to take care of your dog for short and long-term care, as well as grooming, to pick up your food. They have so many things there. If you got your dog for the first time and you got to buy a leash and you got to buy a harness and everything, it's all there for you at the dog daycare and the campground there, with each dog getting their own cabin so they can hang out and relax by themselves. If that's what they would rather do, they can do that, or they can go and mingle with other dogs. And, of course, every dog's temperament is checked before they come in to make sure that every dog is safe and set to go at Canine Camp Dog Daycare and Canine Campground Dog Boarding, going the extra mile for us every single day. PB&J's Lunchbox, located on 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York, is the food truck that you've chased all around Central and Upstate New York. Now when you're craving their grilled peanut butter and jelly and all their other specialties, you can go to their Street Side Cafe. Isn't it great when you love a food truck and you're like, where's that food truck going to be today? Well, now, if that food truck is in one area and you're in another area, guess what? You can either go to the food truck or you can go to the Street Side Cafe. 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox. Head off there today and let them know that Wake Up Call sent you. Their food's fantastic, and I appreciate so very much the women behind the music there at PB&J's Lunchbox. Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, a place I've trusted for almost a decade in dealing with an injury that I've had to go through. Nobody spoke to me like I mattered as a patient. Nobody walked me through the process. No one sat down with me and discussed my options and really cared about what my thoughts and feelings are until I met Victory. That is why I work with them, and that is why you should too. Injuries from head to toe, whatever you have going on, call 315-685-7544. led by Dr. Mark Petropoli and the entire team. They care. That is the most important thing a doctor can do and a team can do when it comes to your injuries. Preventative care, rehab, physical therapy, surgery is someone who cares, someone who listens, and someone who's willing to walk you through it. Victory is a ton of baby steps taken in the same direction over time. And Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics helps to get you there. And I'm a prime example of how that's true. So make sure you call them today. Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics on 791 West Genesee Street in Skinny Atlas, 315-685-7544. With that being stated, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life, want to thank Papa Joe for being a part of today's show, speaking with us about the Aaron Rodgers saga, celebrating the Milwaukee Bucks, two teams in the state of Wisconsin, and that's where Mary T hails from and her family is. So love to Mary T and love to them that they got Aaron Rodgers back, albeit a very interesting situation, and to say the least, and that the Milwaukee Bucks have won a championship, and that Giannis was out there supporting Chick-fil-A. I'm always a big fan of that. So shout out to all the conversations with Papa Joe, his MLB rankings, and of course speaking with him about college football realignment. And then welcoming for the first time ever Karl Haywood to the show, CSRA Press Sports in East Central Georgia. Longtime coverage of Georgia Tech, also coverage of Georgia, and of course the ACC, and almost 5 decades of covering the world of sports and college athletics. So a big thanks to Karl for joining the show to speak on realignment, the ACC Kickoff, where we got to speak, and so much more. So many thanks to him for being a part of the show as well, inside of Mon Paz, popcorn.com's What's Poppin', giving you the list of topics for the day and special guests. And of course, use the promo code anywhere in America, any one of the 50 states. Go to maandpazpopcorn.com and you will get 20% off DT20. That's DT20 at maandpazpopcorn.com, and you'll get 20% off whether you're doing in-store pickup or having it delivered to you. So make sure you do that today. And of course, listen and watch Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, Facebook in 2 areas, facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, facebook.com/livenowdt, and on mixlr.com/wakeupcalldt, as well as the homepage, wakeupcalldt.com, for our website, as the MixLR feed is embedded there. And of course, after the shows go live, you can get them in the archive: Stitcher, TuneIn, Spotify, MixLR, Podbean, iHeartRadio, YouTube, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts. Simply search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or search one word, Wake Up Call DT. Thanks to all of our partners in Central and Upstate New York: Cafe Kubal, Carvel DeWitt, Wildcat Sports Pub, Mother's Cupboard, Honda City of Liverpool, Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay, Avicoli's, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, PB&J's Lunchbox, Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, Pizza Man, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, the Millhouse Market, and Mon Paz Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. You can find us on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, and Instagram at wakeupcall_DT, and of course always on wakeupcalldt.com and on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt. In the meantime, as I always, I'll leave you with these 3 very key ingredients to life that say a lot by saying a little. God bless, no stress, do your best. God's got your back. And remember, God doesn't show you gold and give you silver. God bless you all. Rejection is God's protection. I'll talk with you all soon. Be well and have a good day.